الخير والحث والتمسك بكتاب الله والصلة رسول الله ابتغاء مرضات الله وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيدا والصلاة والسلام على خير الأنام وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. We praise our Lord Most High and exalted, and we ask Him to send copious and unlimited blessings and salutations upon our beloved Prophet Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. أما بعد قال المؤلف رحمه الله رضي الله عنه وعنكم نفعنا به وبكم. And we also acknowledge the traditional elders of the land, the traditional owners of the land, and pay our respects to their elders past and present. So the Imam starts off, he says, وَيَنْبَغِي لِلْوَالِدِ أَنْ يَعِينَ وَلَدَهُ عَلَى بِرِّهِ بِعَدَمِ الْإِسْتِقْصَاءِ عليه في طلب الحقوق. Parents, on page 89, it's the first paragraph. Parents should help their children to be loyal to them and not insisting on every one of their rights. And then he says, ولا سيما في هذا الزمان الذي عز فيه وجود البر وعم فيه وجود الشر. And this is talking about 300 odd years ago. He says, especially in these days when loyalty is scarce, evil rife, and parents consider that their most, he says, وَصَارَ الْوَالِدِ يَعُدُّ أَبَرَّ أَوْلَادِهِ مَنْ لَمْ يَسِئْ إِلَيْهِ مِنْهُمْ وَقَدْ قَالَ عَلَيْهِ رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم رحم الله والدا أعان ولده على بره. It says, parents in these days consider that the most loyal of their children is the one who does not injure them. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, may the blessings and peace of Allah be upon him, may God have mercy on a parent who helps his child to be loyal to him. Now look, this for us is a difficult thing, because the immensity of being loyal to our parents, birr, like we said, to do all good possible to our parents, the immensity of that, it's such a vast and overwhelming right of our parents upon us. We don't want to say, oh, we'll give ourselves excuses, not to be excellent in that manner or do all good towards our parents. So what this is about is that parents shouldn't be overbearing in seeking their rights from their children. That's what it's about. So let's have a common example is that the bloke's married, he's got his own family, he's got his wife, he's got his own children, all these things, and mum's always, or dad as the case might be, always on his back, bring this, take this, go here, this, that, always. So that becomes an overbearing burden, and eventually he's going to crack. And when he does, he's going to be possibly in the disobedience of Allah Azza wa Jal. So the Prophet of Allah is saying that for a parent, it shouldn't be too difficult. Shouldn't be asking for every tiny little thing, everything that comes, and making it overbearing, way too hard for the child to whatever it is seek. Like one example, the brother came and he was asking me. He said, "Oh, son," he said, "Look, I want to look after my mum. I want to do the right thing by her. But what happens is she does it on purpose. She knows that I've got something on for work. And what does she do? She knows. And when that day comes, when that time comes, she says, oh, take me here. She says, Mum, I'll take you wherever you want to go, but you got to give me some notice so I can organise myself for work." So, unfortunately, there are some parents, like we said, like that. There are some parents who act that way with regards to their children. And when inshallah, if we're parents or when we become parents, that we have to be aware to that. We have to be aware that the child also has to establish themselves in life. They also have, if they have to get a job, if they have to have a profession or a career or a trade, they have to be able to work in that field in order to take care of themselves, take care of their family, as the case may be. Whether it's to learn education, whether it's to be educated, whether Islamically or otherwise. So the parent should not be overbearing. If you are the child of an overbearing parent, you have to be aware of that. You have to be aware of that. You have to be aware that my mum and dad, as the case might be, grandfather even, or grandmother as the case might be, are overbearing in their nature and their character. So you've got to try and combat that as best you can. Now sometimes it's verging on impossible, sometimes it's straight impossible. So the overbearing parent, the Prophet ﷺ is saying is that the one who makes it easy for their child, Allah will have mercy on that person. So if we look at the converse of that, the parent who makes it difficult on their child, maybe they're going to have difficulty getting the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's one of the common themes in the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. The competing interests, the competing obligations, the obligations versus the rights of others. So that's sometimes it's a difficult thing, and it has to be taken on a case-by-case basis. But particularly if you're a parent, try and make it easy for your children to obey what it is that you want them to do. So sometimes as well, the parents, when the children are young, everything they're on their case. Don't do this, do this, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. Take it easy, it's alright. Tarbiyah doesn't come in a moment. Tarbiyah doesn't come in an hour. It doesn't come in a day. It doesn't come in a week. It comes in a week, in a month, in a year, in several years. It takes time. So sometimes being overburdening the child, everything's no, this, that. What happens is the child becomes mu'aqqad, they say in Arabic. The child becomes complex. And then later on, they develop a complex, more than likely, some sort of a psychological condition. The OCDs and all the different stuff that's out there. A lot of those things, as the research says, comes from, they have narcissistic parents, and they end up being like that, megalomaniac parents. Unfortunately, that's the reality of the world in which we live.
You brush off on it.
Yeah, exactly, because that's how the person raises that individual. So some people, they're very, like for example, some people, particularly unfortunately ends up being women, they're super clean. Everything has to be super, those chemical sprays in the house and whatever. It's bad, it's poison, really. But every time someone comes and goes, because there's some condition that they've developed because of the overbearing nature of their parents. It's a big thing having a child, it's a big responsibility. It's a huge responsibility. So that's something to keep in mind. And it's a case-by-case thing, according to circumstance, it has to be dealt with. But it's something that we should definitely keep in mind. He says, وَعَلَيْكَ بِصِلَةِ الرِّحْمِ الْأَقْرَبْ فَالْأَقْرَبْ وَبِالْإِحْسَانِ إِلَى الْجِيرَانِ الْأَدْنَى بَابًا فَالْأَدْنَى. So in the second paragraph he says, respect your ties of kinship and start with the closest to you. Give generously of the good things you have to start with the nearest. And start with the nearest. It's not really what it says in Arabic. He's saying, وَعَلَيْكَ, and be careful or cautious of your connection with your relatives, your kinfolk. Al-aqrab fal-aqrab. So the one who is the most closest to you, uncles, aunties, first cousins in that regard, they're the people, grandparents, even before all of those, if your grandparents are around, if they're still alive, alhamdulillah, they're the people that you should be cautious of maintaining a relationship with them. Cautious of a sila, meaning a connection with them. It's one of the things that every believer needs to have. And it's aqrab, for aqrab, sometimes when they talk about aqrab means the one who's nearest to you also in proximity, not just in how close they are related to you, but they live down the road, next door, across the road, whatever it might be. Then of course you should increase the visit to that parent, that grandparent. It might be a parent too if you live on your own, if you're married or whatever, child, whatever the case might be. Uncles, but as we said, uncles and aunties take that kind of first, then cousins, and then moving away from there. First cousins, second, etc., etc. So it could have two connotations. One being the closest they are to you in kin tie, and the second, the closest they are to you in locality and location. So for us, it's somewhat easier in certain circumstances. Like I know some families, they have a WhatsApp group. So they're just chatting and talking and whatever else it might be. It may be or may not be useless. But if you're part of that group, then contribute positively to that group and advise them if they do something that's outside the bounds of the Sharia. So that's a way to keep also emails and maybe or maybe not some other social media, whatever it might be, phone calls, SMS messages, those types of things. That is a form, if that has that intention, of staying connected to your kin ties. He doesn't mention it at all. I don't know why. He doesn't mention it at all. He says then, maybe he's got a different edition. He says also, بالإحسان, to be excellent towards الجيران. الأدنى باب فالأدنى. So also الدنو means nearness as well. So also we have to be excellent. I think the hadith comes up, من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليكرم جاره. Yep, alright. So your neighbours have a right upon you as well. So the one who's nearest to you, that's the one that has a right upon you. You've got to be excellent towards. Al-ikram is to be gracious towards that individual. But there are conditions to it as well. So that if you're, I think it's Imam Ghazali talks about it, says that if you see a neighbour, don't start up a conversation that goes for an hour. You know, maybe because people coming and going from their homes, they've got things to do. Hello, how are you? Other ikram, that if you cook something and the smell of your food wafts next door, before you eat, take a plate of that thing to that guest. If you're lighting up the barbie as an example, which is a classic Lebanese scenario, and the smoke's going everywhere, invite them or take something to them first. Okay? Now this may or may not be the case. If you're buying something that is lavish maybe or extravagant, then don't let your neighbours, and they can't afford to do that, don't let them see. So the Salihin previously, if they bought fruit and things that were extravagant into their homes, they'd either put it in a sack or bring it at night so the neighbours wouldn't see. Wouldn't see, because in their hearts go, well, how come that person is eating so lavishly and we can't afford to do that? It breaks the hearts of other people. I remember when we studied in Yemen, that our neighbour had a wedding, we see him, hello, how are you? That's it. They had a wedding, they invited us, they came to the house, make sure you come, and the wedding goes for 3 days and the ladies go, and mashallah, massive plates of rice and sheep and goats on top, just from, because they're celebrating and they want us to enjoy the celebration with them. Don't worry, we enjoyed it, it was good, alhamdulillah. So that's the type of thing how it should be. When there's a time for celebration, that we should celebrate. And there was a time for condolences, we should go and pay our respects. If they're Muslim or not Muslim, it doesn't matter. If they have a relative die, they're having a wake, alright? No, we shouldn't go to the church service or the synagogue service, because that's not part of our deen, and some scholars say it's haram. You should stay away from that. But the wake, like the azah, where you go and pass your condolences and commiserate them, so look, bad luck, so hopefully you don't feel bad. That's part of the sunnah. We should do that. So we don't involve ourselves in their religious ceremonies, but we certainly go to their homes. If they need something, if they need help, whatever it may be, outside of inside of the disaster or the difficult time, the musibah, and also outside. If the building, I remember when we were in Lebanon when we were kids, someone wanted to build the house. The neighbours, that's it. They all came and dug the trenches and put the foundations, and they all helped out. And what did he do? He put on a feed for them. He was constantly feeding them and giving them drink or whatever. That's the neighbourly thing to do. Nowadays, when if that happens, they call the darok straight away. They call the police. Oh, this person's building. What if they haven't got a permit, etc., etc. And then we wonder why our communities disparate and separated and not together and not unified, because of those types of things. So we should always be there. If our neighbour, their child gets injured, or someone has an operation or sick or whatever, we need to be there. We need to make sure that we're gracious towards them in that regard. I don't know why it's not mentioned. Maybe, like I said, in the English, maybe it's a different nuskha, maybe a different edition. He says, Allah Azza wa Jalla says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تَشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينَ وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ وَالصَّاحِبِ بِالْجُنُبِ بالجنب. بالجنب it says he's got it.
صاحب الجنب.
It's got a jumbi here. It's got a dhamma. Looks like it. Alright. So he talks about it here in the English. He says, worship Allah, associate. This is how important it is. This is how important it is. So associate nothing with Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Believe with excellence. Behave with excellence towards parents, near kindred, orphans, the indigent, the neighbour who is of kin and a neighbour who is not of kin, and the sahib. Also the He's missed the last one. So also the companion, the one who is next to you, travelling with you on the path, your classmate, or whatever the case might be, sitting at a restaurant eating and the person's next to you, whatever the case might be, basically everyone in that regard. Because the Muslim, the believer, the definition of the believer is the one who people are safe from their ills or their vices. And everywhere they go, they spread good, they spread positivity, they spread hope, they spread compassion, they spread empathy. So in any and all circumstance, that's the role of the believer, inshallah azza wa jal. And what does it say? Those who worship Allah, wa'abad Allah. And then do not associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, it's, in other words, from the essence of worshipping Allah in terms of actions is the way the believer behaves to those around him or her. That's the essence of it. He says, وَقَدْ أَمَرَ اللَّهُ بِالْإِحْسَانِ إِلَى الْقَرَابَةِ فِي مَوَاضِعْ عَدِيدَةٍ في كتابه العزيز قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم الصدقة على القربى صدقة وصلة. So he says that God has in many contexts enjoined kind behavior toward kin in his precious book. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, may blessings and peace be upon him, has said, charity to kin is both charity and joining or tying of kinship bonds. And then he says, وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليصل رحمه. وقال وفي حديث آخر من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليكرم جاره. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام ما زال جبريل يوصيني بالجار حتى خشيت أنه سيورثه. So, the Prophet of Allah ﷺ has said, let him or her who believes in the day of judgment, who believes in God in the last day, honor his or her neighbor. And Jibreel ﷺ, the Archangel Gabriel, has enjoined me so often with regard to the neighbor that I thought he would allow him or her to inherit from the Prophet of Allah ﷺ. So, when we look at this paragraph in particular, and the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the words of the Prophet of Allah ﷺ, we realize how enormous this quality, this responsibility, this obligation, we may say, is upon us as believers. First one is, whoever believes, part of belief in Allah. It's not like a rukn even, or a fard. It's the essence of belief. And there's another hadith that says that the shu'bat al-iman, the stages of belief, or the conditions of belief, or the parts, more correctly, of belief, bid'ah wa sab'un, 70 odd. And what the lowest being, to remove harm from the way, to remove something that's harmful in the path of people walking, or people driving, or riding their bikes, or pushing their prams or wheelchairs or whatever. The highest of which is La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. And there's 70 odd between them. So, when the Prophet says, alayhi salatu wasalam, that whoever believes in Allah on the last day, that's a part of Iman, that means. That means it's fundamentally attached to our beliefs. Acting in that manner towards those respective parties. So he says, alayhi salatu wasalam, so the sadaqah, to give money to that, that's why the statement is that aqrabuna awla bil ma'ruf, those who are related to you and those who are close to you. It's got a double meaning. Those who are around you, that's proximity in terms of location, and those who are related to you, the close relations to you, they have priority in you giving money. And the Prophet said that's sadaqah wasila. And some ulama said it's sadaqatul sila. Some ulama called it, it's a sadaqah that actually brings people closer to you, that maintains that kinship bonds. Because if you're giving someone money and they're related to you, of course there's going to be a connection. Of course. And then he says, alayhi salatu wassalam, let him or her who believes in the day in God and the day, honor his or her neighbor. Yakrim is, look, it can have two connotations, but it's that being gracious again. Being there for them, assisting them, helping them, opening the door, helping them carry their groceries or whatever it is. Afwan, their car breaks down, you know about cars, help them. Their computer breaks down, you know about computers. They're painting their house, you know how to paint. Those types of things. Those types of things. And what it does also, it helps us to be less self-consumed. Because unfortunately we're all consumed with ourselves and our own busyness. and our own projects and what we want to do, where we want to go and what we want to see and what we want to say and what we want to post and what we want to write and what we want to talk about. That's the nature of the society in which we live in. We're all self-consumed. And these attributes, this tawajjuh, this thought pattern, this ideology, so to speak, philosophy more correctly, helps us to break away from it's all about me. What I want to do is so important. It helps us break away and say, well, I've got responsibilities here. I have obligations. I have a duty to maintain. It's part of my iman to be like this. So it helps us break away from that difficulty that, the neighbor needs help, instead of ducking away and hiding. Remember, man amana billahi wal yawmil akhir. Whoever believes in Allah, do I believe in Allah? Do I believe in the Day of Judgment? In other words, do I believe in being asked by Allah about my actions? Do I believe in that? Okay, well, wait a minute. I've got to help out my neighbor. I've got to maintain the kinship relations between me and my relatives. I've got to obey my parents and be excellent towards them. So it changes our outlook on life, inshallah. He said, so much so that Jibreel mentioned it. What's Jibreel's job? What's his job? Right? Aminul Wahi. He's the trustee over revelation. All revelation that's come from Allah to earth, from all the prophets, from Adam alayhi salam and Sheeth and Nuh and Ibrahim and Yaqub and all the prophets. Musa and Jesus and all of them. All the ones that have come, Jibreel alayhi salam has been responsible, the Archangel Gabriel, he's been responsible for passing the message from Allah al-Mahfuz to the messenger of that time. So that's a big deal, is it not? The revelation came through him, and what's he saying? Your neighbor, your neighbor, your neighbor, your neighbor. Why? That's what community is. When we have community, that's when we're alive. That's when we are human beings. That's when we're truly human beings. When it's all about me, I've got my 6-bedroom, 5-bathroom house with walk-in wardrobes, spa bath, pool, sauna, etc. 150,000-inch screen TV, and whatever else. Does that make me happy? Is that going to make me happy? Ask who said it. Jim Carrey, the funny man actor. He goes, I read a quote of his one time. He goes, I hope everyone reaches their dreams in terms of wealth and money and fame. He said, because so they can know that there's no happiness in wealth and money and fame. This doesn't fill our hearts. What fills our hearts? When do we feel most happy? In Iman, definitely. And in terms of action, when we give. When we help someone. When we assist someone. When we make someone else happy, that's when we're most happy. Irrespective. Think about the times in your life when you left what you wanted to do. When you left what you wanted to think about or where you wanted to go to help someone else and they were happy. What's the feeling you had inside? The contentment. The contentment. That's what makes you happy. You cannot be happy unless you're content. You cannot be content unless your spirit is illuminated and your mind is at ease. You can't be happy no matter what you got. And that comes from serving our fellow human beings. That comes from service, khidmah. Some of the other famous quotes are something like, to live on earth, you have no right to be here. You have to pay rent. And paying rent to be on earth is helping others. Along those lines anyway. You have to help others. That's the rent you pay to be here. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about. It's part of your faith. If you're a believer in Allah on the last day. Part of each and every one of us' faith to make the world a better place. To bring people together. To bring community. To make community. And that's what everyone complains about now. Back in our day, it was different. There wasn't that many people. We used to go visit each other regularly. And people say, I don't see anyone anymore. Too busy. Everyone's tied up in their own projects and goals and whatever. This should be our goal. One of the goals that we have. This should be one of the goals. How often do I visit my neighbours? How often do I visit my relatives? How often do I look after my parents, etc.? Like I said, even if it is by a phone call, whatever the case might be. And he says, وَلَا تُتِمْ صِلَةَ الْأَرْحَامِ وَالْإِحْسَانِ إِلَى الجِّيرَانِ إِلَّا بِكَفِّ الْأَذَى عَنْهُمْ وَاحْتِمَالِ الْأَذَى مِنْهُمْ وَبَذْلِ الْمَعْرُوفِ حَسَبَ الْإِسْتِطَاعَةِ لَهُمْ. So he says, maintaining ties of kinship and kind behavior towards neighbors will not be complete unless, this is the first aspect, 1, refrains from harming them. 2, endures the harm they do upon you. And 3, does good to them according to the means at one's disposal. So the 3 aspects that have to be there. Okay? Got to be good to